Greetings, Centennial State, and welcome to the Colorado Report. I'm Dave Rex. Twice a week, we bring you select headlines and side stories from the Rocky Mountain State. Thank you for joining us. From the Pueblo Chieftain. More adults of all ages in Colorado are using marijuana, and that number is significantly higher than the national average. While pot use by teens didn't show any increase and essentially mirrors the national average for high schoolers, more adults are using, especially people between 18 and 25. Those numbers are in the latest two-year study, 2016 to 2017. By the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. The report is the third statewide analysis since voters legalized recreational marijuana in 2012. Quote, "It's critical we continue to monitor the use in all populations and work to minimize harms that could result from a variety of causes, including unintended poisoning, unsafe driving, and mental health issues that may be associated with long-term habitual use." End quote, said Dr. Tisha Gosh, we're going to go with Gosh, Chief Medical Officer with the department. Here are highlights from the latest report. Looking at Colorado adults 18 years and older, more than 17% reported using cannabis within the previous 30 days in 2017. Nationally, that number was slightly more than 9%. Significantly, adults between 18 and 25 reported the highest usage in the previous months, 29%. But use by all adult age groups showed increases too. Those between 26 and 34 showed another spike to 26%, up from 19% just a year earlier. Even use amongst people 65 and older showed an increase to nearly 6% from 4%. More men, nearly 20%, reported using pot in 2017, compared to 11% among women. Of major concern to lawmakers is whether legalizing recreational pot is leading to more widespread use by minors, but this report indicated Colorado teens are much like their peers nationally. More than 19% of high school students in Colorado reported using pot in 2017, and 5% of middle schoolers. That's a slight decline among the older teens when compared to the 2015 survey, but a small increase among middle school students. The report authors caution those changes were so slight as to be statistically insignificant. Nationally, about 19% of high schoolers reported using pot in the previous month. One change statewide is that slightly more girls, 19%, reported using pot in the previous 30 days than young males, just less than 19%. And one glaring difference among all categories of young people and adults is that people who identify as gay, transgender, or bisexual reported much higher pot use than their peers, nearly 30%. That remained consistent with the report 2 years ago. Next may be a story we all heard, but is still amazing, so let's get it down into the books of the Colorado Report. On an unseasonably warm February day, Travis Kaufman headed out around noon for a run in the foothills outside of Fort Collins, wearing shorts and a fleece pullover. Within 2 hours, he'd emerged from the woods, clothes tattered, body blood-smeared but alive. The story of how he came face-to-face with a juvenile mountain lion and not only survived, but killed the animal that attacked him soon became the stuff of legend. It's the type of story that feeds the impulses of internet commenters and quickly embeds itself into local folklore, like a Wild West tale come to life. The basic plot line was well known within hours. A mountain lion ambushed a trail runner in a popular open space area, Without the aid of weapons, the runner fought back, the cat continued the onslaught and lost its life, but the details were largely unknown. KUNC's Luke Runyon spoke with Kaufman for his first sit-down media interview. He'd been anonymous since the attack on February 4th. He identified himself at a press conference with Colorado Parks and Wildlife on February 14th. Full disclosure, Runyon and Kaufman have known each other for about 4 years. Kaufman started his run that day with a grueling slog. He began Author's Rock trailhead and eventually took up with Towers Trail, a steep 4x4 road within Horsetooth open space that stretches from Horsetooth Reservoir to the top of a ridge more than 7,000 feet in elevation. After the lung-busting climb, Kaufman took in the view from the top of the well-trafficked trail. He began his descent on a different one, West Ridge Trail, running south towards Horsetooth Mountain. Kaufman is an experienced trail runner, but this was his first time on West Ridge. Quote, "So this was a less than ideal first introduction to that set of trails, but it was very pretty," Kaufman said. A few weeks back, Kaufman signed up for a 50-kilometer trail race, the Dirty 30, this summer in Colorado's Golden Gate Canyon State Park. This ill-fated run was part of his training, getting him ready to take on the challenge. Originally from northern Arkansas, Kaufman moved to the Colorado 6 years ago and works for an environmental consulting firm. The 31-year-old, at 5 feet 10 inches tall and 150 pounds, skipped the earbuds on this run, opting instead for the sound of his own footsteps. A quarter mile into his descent from Towers, he heard pine needles rustling on the trail behind him. "I stopped and turned," he said, "and it was one of those situations where sometimes I turn, sometimes I don't. But in the back of my mind, I always wonder if it's something dangerous like a bear, a bobcat, or a mountain lion. And in this case, it was in fact a mountain lion. So I remember seeing that and just having my gut feel the full impact of the situation." The juvenile cougar barreled toward him. Kaufman put his arms up and screamed in an attempt to scare the cat away. Quote, "Unfortunately, it kept running." The cat leapt at Kaufman's face. He raised his arms in a defensive motion to blunt the initial attack. Its mouth locked around his wrist. One tooth sunk into the meaty part of his thumb. Another dug into the top of his wrist. The mountain lion hugged Kaufman's body, digging its front claws into his back. Its back legs thrashed at his thighs. He tried to pull it off, but with its mouth clamped around his wrist, the two ended up tumbling more than 20 feet off the trail into a gully. Quote, "But during that fall, the cat ended up on its back, and it still had my wrist this whole time in its mouth." With the leverage of being on top of the cougar, Kaufman used one of his legs to pin the animal's hindquarters to the ground and then searched for a way to fight back. He grabbed sticks, but they were rotted and crumbled when he tried to use them against the cat. With his free hand, he found a rock and began hitting its head. The angle was awkward, and Kaufman let the cat's legs slip out from under him. Quote, "Its back legs got free at that point, and it's scratching my back and calves, and then some more of my thighs a little bit." He was able to repin the mountain lion's legs with his left leg and swung the other around the cat's throat. "I got my right foot onto his neck," he said, "and then I was able to get some weight onto his windpipe, and that's what eventually suffocated it." Only when the cat was dead did it release Kaufman's wrist from its mouth. The whole battle lasted about 10 minutes. That was long enough for Kaufman to begin to process the life-changing event underway. While he battled the mountain lion, he occasionally would look up and scan the trees, looking for a second cat to join. Quote, "One of the thoughts that I was having was like, well, this would be a pretty crappy way to die. Just off on the side of a mountain screaming and having this cat wrapped around my wrist. Then eventually another cat comes in and takes me out, and then getting eaten by a bunch of mountain lions. That wouldn't be an ideal way to go. It very much turned into just a full-on fight for survival." After suffocating the cat, covered in scratches and puncture wounds and full of adrenaline, Kaufman started running again. Quote, I was looking around and feeling like I was being watched by cats on all sides, because I really took in my surroundings a little bit more and then realized that the whole west side of the trail was filled with rock overhangs and just prime mountain lion territory. He eventually encountered another runner, a man named Spencer. Kaufman didn't get his last name. The two began walking down Towers Trail and came across two hikers, Noah and Rachel of Fort Collins. They helped Kaufman down to the Soderberg open space trailhead. Rachel drove Kaufman to the Padre Valley Hospital emergency room, while Noah and Spencer went to fetch Kaufman's truck at the trailhead where he started his run and drop it off at the hospital. Kaufman received more than 24 stitches on his face, a brace for his wrist, and an antibiotic regimen. A necropsy on the mountain lion showed no signs of rabies. Investigators could not determine the animal's sex, but estimated its weight to be 35 to 40 pounds. In the time it took for Kaufman to hike down and officials with Colorado Parks and Wildlife to visit the scene of the attack, the dead mountain lion had already been partially eaten. County open space officials temporarily closed the area where the attack occurred, citing additional mountain lion activity. State wildlife officials relocated 2 other juvenile mountain lions from the area, possible siblings of the cat Kaufman killed, according to a press release. News of the attack went viral. For more than 1 week, Kaufman's identity was not widely known, but that didn't stop internet theories from floating around about his purported background in martial arts, his workout regimen, and his training in hand-to-hand combat. Colorado Parks and Wildlife fielded the inquiries asking if he was single. Kaufman says he's not a competitive runner, more of a hobbyist who's begun to train for longer races. He plays adult recreational soccer in a local league and sometimes turns on the Insanity brand of taped workouts. He's never done martial arts. He lives with his girlfriend. Quote, "It's weird being considered a celebrity for just surviving, which is a weird way to achieve a certain degree of notoriety. For the most part, I tend to lie underneath the radar a little bit. The foothills might feel like a place just for people for recreation," Kaufman said, "but they're wild places. Being aware of your surroundings while hiking and trail running might save your life." Kaufman says the decision to not wear earbuds to listen to music saved his life. He heard the mountain lion coming before he saw it, and that might have given him the edge. Quote, "The first night I could not go to sleep because I just kept picturing him turning around, and the cat lunging on him," said Kaufman's girlfriend. "Just thinking if he hadn't turned around, you just kept replaying that, because I'm convinced too that him turning around 100% saved his life." The stitches on Kaufman's face are gone, and the wounds on his back and legs and wrist are beginning to heal. He's even gone out running again since the attack occurred, not on Horsetooth, but other nearby trails. He still plans on running the 50K race in June. The Rocky Mountain foothills, with all their crags and cliffs, are prime hunting territory for mountain lions. It's why they live there. When he goes running now, he notices small things he didn't pay much attention to before, like when the trail shifts from open grasslands to a narrow rocky outcrop shaded in pine trees. He looks over his shoulder more. Quote, "It's such a really weird freak thing. Mountain lions are so reclusive and really shy away from humans. I know logically that it's not a legitimate concern that I should actually worry about, but I mean, it's there." Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials praised Kaufman's handling of the situation, saying he did everything you're supposed to do in an encounter with a mountain lion. He tried to scare it off by making noise and raising his arms. When that didn't work, he used sticks and rocks to defend himself, and when that wasn't enough, he used his body and wits to kill the animal. He said he was following his gut. Quote, "During the whole process, I didn't really make that many decisions. There was a lot of instinct. And so there weren't a lot of decisions to second guess or a lot of critical moments that I had to rethink or go through and reprocess. For the most part, I don't feel any residual trauma from it, and I tend to like to move forward. That's kind of my personality." And that's it for this Sunday edition of the Colorado Report. You can check out links and show notes for this and all episodes at thecoloradoreport.com. You can send your emails to coloradoreport@gmail.com. You can tweet me. The handle is @thecoreport. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you soon.